All right, well, it looks like we have some people joining us. Thank you for being here today. Just a quick reminder, we will have a poll launch after each presentation this morning. It'll just stay up for a couple minutes. It's just a couple short questions. We ask that you please fill it out. It helps us with future programming. Also, we will have CCA credits available after each talk, and we will make sure those also stay up for a couple minutes. That way you're able to use them with your mobile device. So without further ado, our first speaker today is Dr. Jonathan Kleinjan. He's an extension agronomist here at South Dakota State University in Brookings. He serves as the director of the SDSU Crop Performance Testing Program and is chair of the SDSU Variety Committee. In addition to extension outreach, his work includes applied agronomic research in multiple crops, including corn, soybeans, spring and winter wheat, and oats. And today, Dr. Kleinjan will be giving a talk titled Corn Lessons Relearned in the Drought of 2021. So with that, you're welcome to start and go right ahead. And I believe your mic is muted. There you go.
I was muted. I'm sorry about that. And I can't seem to figure out how to back up. So, well, Shelby, I guess you said the title of my talk before. And yeah, sorry, the buttons have me flustered here. But anyway, I guess lessons I learned during the drought of 2021. I don't think my title slide quite matched up with that, but just to review quickly, I think Dr. Varenhorst shared a slide similar to this yesterday, and no need to really go over that, but this is just a view of the U.S. drought monitor in the middle of July, kind of maybe when we were reaching our peak, and maybe not in some places. I mean, it was kind of a spotty drought, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but this is probably the time period when it's most important for corn production, and since we're focusing on corn this week, I thought I'd share this slide briefly. And for some reason, my slides are not working here. Let me stop sharing and start over here. I'm sorry about this, guys. All right. Looks like things are working now. I'm sorry about that, everyone. So here we are in the middle of July again, drought monitor, and then looking here at when corn needs its most water. Just a review here. So if we would have planted on, say, May 1st, 60 days after we're in July 1st, and then 90 days after we're at August 1st. So right when we need our most water was kind of when we were very dry in South Dakota this summer. And like I said, that was spotty. That's kind of a generalization. But really corn, you probably need to water to make sure there's adequate soil moisture right up until this point somewhere, R4, R5. So, I mean, that was kind of right when we were reaching our peak drought. In many places in the state. So we'll look at how that affected South Dakota corn production in the slides to come. So a friend of mine, West River, labeled this the green drought of 2021. So I can't lay claim to that label, but I thought it was fairly apt because it kind of described, you know, we saw drought in a lot of places, but yet it didn't really seem that bad overall. And if you had drought very bad in your isolated area, I apologize for stating that, but it was just very spotty. A lot of places got little rains just to kind of keep people limping along, and it was a drought, but it just didn't seem like it was as severe in a lot of places as it has been in years past. But today we're going to look at briefly precipitation and temperature patterns throughout the growing season, effects on corn yields in the state, and then observations that I saw during the past growing season. So first of all, precipitation and temperature patterns. So Laura Edwards sent me these slides last fall. And what these are from the National Weather Service, percent of normal precipitation. And I started with April, even though I would say the drought or lower precipitation pattern started maybe towards the end of last summer, like August, September, for a lot of folks in the state. But just to keep things simple, I started in April of this year. So you can see the red dots are less water, and as you go green to purple, we have more water. So starting in April, we were fairly dry in most of the state, especially the corn growing areas, except maybe the northeast part of the state, right? Let's move on to May. Now, May, we start to get pretty dry everywhere in the Corn Belt. June, we're really dry, okay? Basically the whole state, except there was some isolated high rainfall events up in this area. But most of the corn producing areas of the state were very dry. I remember I was rooting for us to break the record of drought in June. I think it was about 6,500 in Brookings, and that was set in the 1930s. I want to say 34. And we were on course to break that for lowest precipitation until the last day of June, and we had a little like 1,500s of rain that put us over the top. So near record drought or near record dry June in many locations of the state. Okay, moving on to July here, we start to see a few precipitation events, but again, very spotty, as I mentioned before. Kind of the southern part of the state here, we did see some more normal rain, but still very dry. I'd say probably to stereotype, the north central part of the state seemed to remain driest the longest. Brookings County stayed very dry. Northeast started picking up some rains. It doesn't really show on this graphic too much. Let's look at August. August is when the rain started to come for a lot of people. You can see basically the northern half of the state had above to much above normal precip. Southern part of the state, there's still a belt in here in the middle that stayed very dry. And finally, September, although we're getting to the point in September where we didn't really need the water so much for corn anymore, it might just help with some kernel fill, but yields have pretty much been determined at this time. And you can see that the higher the normal rainfall continued in the northern half of the state, but it kind of dried out again in the south. So let's look at temperature. I didn't include April in temperature because April was basically the same as May. We were normal to a little bit below normal, but June is when things kind of started to heat up. Very warm June. And then July, we were still warmer than normal, but not as much above normal as June. August, kind of the same situation. And September, the same situation. So we were above normal all year, but I would say June was really the only super high month. And heat is good for crop production as long as you have soil moisture. So we'll see in a couple later slides, I'll talk about that a little bit more, how heat in the later season did actually help in some situations. Okay, just to discuss corn yields in 2021. Just to review, how much water does corn need? If you're going to grow 150 bushels an acre, you need about 16 inches of water. And this has been shown in the literature over the years. I would say as you get towards the top end of the scale, if you're getting up there in the 250 bushel corn, you maybe don't need quite as much water to reach those extra bushels, but on average, you need about an inch of water to get 150 bushels of corn. Sometime during the growing season, I mean, it's not going to equate exactly to rainfall because there's water in the soil profile usually, but this is just a good rule of thumb. Okay, moving on. Shelby mentioned in my intro that I'm in charge of the crop testing program. So we have corn testing locations at each of these spots where there is a box. And to briefly explain how this map works, you can see the rough outline of South Dakota here. And each box has the 5-year average prior to this year, so 2016 through 2020. And then the bottom number in each box is the 2021 yield. And if it was higher than the 5-year average, I put the text in green. And if it's lower, I put it in red. And so overall for the state, we average 215 bushels per acre at my testing sites, which you're going to say, well, that's not a drought at all. Keep in mind that the yields at the testing sites tend to be higher than the fields around them, smaller plots, and usually on some of the better soil types. I'm sorry, the 5-year average was 215. This year's average was 180, which 35 bushels below our average. And I would say in general, from talking to producers around the state, you know, we had a lot of variation, but overall, I'd say a lot of people said, well, yields were better than I thought, but I was still quite a bit off my average 30 to 40 bushel. And I think we kind of see that in this slide. Most of the ones that were down were around 30 to 40 bushels. We were 50 bushel below here down at Mount Vernon. I don't know what happened in Miller. We caught a freak rainfall event there, I think just when the corn needed it, but we were 50 bushels above, 55 bushels above average in that location. And like I said, in the Northeast, I think I pointed this out in the earlier slides, but we were never really hurting for water in that part of the state. So we had tremendous yields in South Shore. Most other areas of the state, though, we were down. And looks here, especially in Brookings County, we have the highest 5-year average in all the trial locations, but we were less than half. And part of that is the soil type at the Volga Research Farm. It's about 4 feet of topsoil, and then underneath it's gravel. So when it's out of water, it is done. And I tried overlaying this map. Let's see if this works. Over the July precipitation to see if I could see anything in it. I don't know if it shows what I wanted it to show, but you can see in some of these areas where it was very dry. You can't see the yields here on Aberdeen anymore, but you can see Aberdeen was quite a bit below normal, and it was dry there in July. Brookings County was very dry in July. A little bit drier, or a little bit more wet in Bancroft, so we weren't quite as low normal. And then here in Han County, yields were high again, and that blue dot kind of shows a rainfall event. Now, I don't know if that's what contributed to that, the high yields in that area, or what, but just kind of interesting to see how the yields relate to precipitation. And like I said, as spotty as we were this year, our test plots could be a couple miles from the weather station that recorded this precipitation and not show any yield bump. So anyway, let's look at early versus late. So each of our trial locations is split into an early trial and a late trial. So for instance, at Bancroft, 99 day and below is early, and 100 day and above is considered late. In the northern locations, Selby, 95 day and below is early, 96 day and above is late. So in most locations this year, the late trials outperform the early. That's typically what we see. Later hybrids just have a little bit more yield potential. I think this year in particular, since it started raining later, some of those later hybrids were able to hang on and add bushels when some of the earlier hybrids were done. You see a couple exceptions here. Miller makes me think that rainfall event was timed a little bit more for these early hybrids, and then we ran out of water again late on some of the later stuff. But overall, year in, year out, the later hybrids are going to yield a couple bushel more. The later trial averages are going to be a couple bushels higher than the early. Okay, moving on. What did I see this year? And some reason I have a blank slide here. So $120, and I'm going to just kind of give a shout out to variety testing here. So at $6 corn, I often see a 20 bushel per acre increase from the top yielding varieties in the hybrids in the trial to the average hybrid. So if you spend some time picking out hybrids, this is the money you're leaving on the table versus an average hybrid versus a really good hybrid. And so, I mean, I'm not going to preach this too much to this group because I feel all of you know the value of hybrid selection. But it's one of the easiest things you can do, and it costs you no money to spend some time with yield data and pick out the better yielding hybrids. And it's important to pick out, don't just look at your location one year. That doesn't really tell you much of anything. You have to look at multiple locations, multiple years if possible. I guess I'll talk about a little bit more about that in slides to come, but this is just can kind of show you what money can be left on the table. Oftentimes I see 50 bushels variation between the high and the low yielding hybrids. And you know, if you do the math there at $6 corn, that's $300 an acre. So anyway, here's just a snapshot of one of our trial locations. This is the late season trial in South Shore in 2021. And my laser pointer turned off, I guess. Turn it back on. But looking at this data here, this is our data reporting format. So we have the brand and the hybrid, maturity rating, and then we have yield, moisture, test weight, lodging. Some years the stand comes into play if we have a lodging event. One thing to point out here, I highlight in blue all the hybrids that are statistically similar to the winning hybrid in the trial. So this year, the Proceed 2196 was the top yielding hybrid. But if we would run this trial again, just due to experimental error, etc., any of these in theory would have the chance to win. All conditions the same. And that is the number down here, the LSD. I've had questions on what that means. So statistically, these are all the same. I mean, even though there's 10 bushels of difference, experimental wise, we cannot say that they're any different. Another number I like to point out to look at, and the first trials will have this too, is the CV. This is called the coefficient of variation. And this tells us how good the data is. 2.8 is very, very good. You can see here on the bottom line, the footnote, CV is a measure of variability, and 15% or less is acceptable. I like to see that number below 10, and the closer that number is to 0, the better. We just had an outstanding trial in South Shore this year, so the CV was very low. Typically, there's around 5 to 6 in our trials, but this is very good data, very good data set. Looking at some of these hybrids, I recognize this one, and this one as being toward the top in the trials over years and over locations. This one I recognize and this one is toward the top sometimes, but it's not as consistent. And then the 2196 Proceed is a new one for us, so I don't know much about it. But anyway, like I said, if you look at enough data, some of these will start to rise to the top. Anything else I want to point out here? I get this question all the time. How come some of the other more well-known companies are not in the trials? We send out application forms to everyone, and everyone has the option to participate, but unfortunately, a lot of the larger companies do not choose to participate in their trials, and that's just the way it is. They don't participate in the first trials either. But anyway, moving on, what are some sources of yield data? Crop performance testing or other university trial results, I think, are good. First trials are good. Those are replicated tests too, performed the same way the university trials are done. The only thing I don't like about the first trials is they don't report the bottom half, or I shouldn't say half. They only report the top 30 yielding hybrids. So you don't get to see what's at the bottom. And to me, there's a lot of value in seeing the poor performers versus the good performers as well. So if you want to find our data, just Google this term or get a hold of me after the trials. You could Google first trials and find that. The final source of yield data to look at would be company or co-op test strip results. And these would be like your show plots or seed dealer plots planted in strips. These have value, but I don't think they're nearly as good as the replicated trials performed by these two entities, just because you have a single replication, and in my opinion, that doesn't tell you much. So if you look at these results, look at several locations and average those together before you make a selection. If possible, look at all three of these. And I'm not going to talk about variety selection anymore or hybrid selection, but I just thought it'd be good to review that with this group today. Okay, another thing I saw this year was drought-induced potassium deficiency. This was a local field. And what happens is potassium moves to the plant root through the soil solution. And when you get a super dry year and there's not much just water in the soil, it affects how the roots can, uptake that potassium. And this field, I kept an eye on it through the year. I talked to the producer at the end of the year, and it did come out of it. He said the corn here was just as good as anything else that he grew. So really, if you get to this point, there's no rescue application you can do. Like I said, the plant will come out of it if you start getting rain. This is a picture I got from Anthony Bly. And if you think soil test levels are important in K, which I mean they are, but Anthony Bly found this in a field. You can see the symptoms right here. And this had a soil test of 300 parts per million potassium. So if you have a dry year, conditions are wrong, it's going to show up. And that's just something we're going to see in the drought. And I'm not going to talk too much about this. Dr. Jason Clark might mention this some more in his talk tomorrow. I don't know if he does or not, but if you want more information on it, he'd be a better one to talk to than myself. Okay, moving on. This is probably a familiar sight for some of you last year. And the point I want to make with this slide is look how sick this corn looks. And after a rain event, this is kind of what the same field looked like. This is on basically a piece of pure sand. And it looks like we're going uphill here, but what it is the taller corn in the back, you can kind of see this line here, irrigator hit that corn. So that had relatively adequate water throughout the growing season. And then the stunted corn here was kind of on these field edges. And we ended up getting a 2-inch rain event. And this is about a week later. So if you're ready to give up on this corn, really, hybrids these days are very resilient if they catch rain event. You can see it soaking here. This would put on a fairly decent year yet. Unfortunately, it dried out again and did not have enough water to finish the season. But the point I want to make here is don't count these modern hybrids out until after they've tasseled and you see what the moisture is going to look like for the rest of the season, or you have an idea. So I had this question this summer too. Well, if it hasn't tasseled by August 1st and I planted it May 1st, is it too late? And I said, yeah, that's probably getting to the point. If it hasn't tasseled within a couple of weeks of when you would expect it to, and there's no rain in the forecast, that's probably about the time you want to think about making some other management decisions. But overall, our modern corn hybrids are very resilient compared to what we had even I'd say 30 years ago. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about today briefly, maybe not so briefly, but I did a corn data planning study, a hybrid maturity by data planning study in Volga, and we did this last year in 2022 or 2020 as well. This is a picture that I took on July 13th of this year at the Volga farm. You can see we still have pretty good water. Things look pretty good. We're starting to run out in the profile a little bit. But what we do is what we did is I have 6 hybrids. We have a 76-day, 82, 85, 90, 95, and 100-day. So 6 hybrids replicated 3 times in each strip. This one was planted April 30th. This strip was planted May 15th, June 1st, and June 15th. A couple things to point out while we're still looking at this. There's not a whole lot of difference you can see between April 30th, May 15th. Most years that's going to be the case. And here the June 15th planting date, it's been in the ground not quite a month at the time of this picture. And you can see it's hurting for water. I should have taken a close-up picture of this, but the leaves are pretty small. It's just suffering as we're starting to run out of water in Volga. And here's a slide kind of pointing that out. The rainfall in Volga this summer. I took this snapshot on August 18th, so about a month after the picture that I just showed you. And as of August 18th, the Volga research farmer had 6.4 inches of rain, and look at the difference with normal. So 9.5 inches behind normal. So it got very dry there. And if you remember back to the slide I showed earlier, where yields were about half of normal, I guess that kind of explains it, what's going on. All right, so here's our results. We'll take some time to walk through this a little bit. Like I said, we have the maturities of the hybrids listed here on the bottom. And then we have the 4 planting dates: April, May, June 15th, June 1st, June 15th, and then the yields here at the top. So you can see the first 2, which I would consider our normal planting dates. We were at the 112, 113 bushel yield range, and that's exactly what we had in the yield trials too. So like I said, we just hit a wall there, ran out of water. We did not have our 15 inches of water that we needed to make, or 16 inches of water that we needed to make 150 bushels at a normal planting date. Once we got to June, these were planted late enough, they hung on, and then when it started raining, I should have mentioned I took that snapshot on August 18th. On August 19th, we got a pretty good rain. And it kind of rained a little bit after that, more consistently. So these later 2 planting dates were able to take advantage of some moisture that the earlier ones were not. Another observation, in the early planting dates, it didn't really seem to matter what the maturity was. They all yielded about the same. You get later here, we start picking up moisture, and the later planting dates start to do what they do and add more bushels, or the later maturities, I'm sorry. 76-day hung in there a little better than I thought, although I thought in the shorter seasons that might have performed a little bit better. 82-day, I'm surprised there's such a discrepancy between the June 1st and the June 15th planting date. But overall, the later planting date, the 82-day hung in there fairly well. But overall, you're still going to get your better yields with the ideally adapted hybrids, which I would say are going to be your 95 to 101 day hybrids in the Brookings area. And I wanted to show you guys what the moistures were, just so you think, well, if it's dry next year, I'm going to plant late, hoping for late rains, which are no guarantee. These were all harvested on October 15th. So really not too bad for planting June 1st to have corn this moisture on October 15th. But we start getting pretty wet here on this later date with the very short growing season. If we wouldn't have had the heat we had in August, September, I wonder what these moistures would have been on some of these later planting dates. But overall, this is opposite of what we would expect. I would expect the yield curve to kind of go like this. You know, we did not have a normal year this year. I still think there's lessons to be learned from this. Let's look at yield by hybrid. 101 day hybrid did the best, 95 day the second, but really all of these top 4 maturities were statistically the same. Like I said, not the best year to learn about hybrid by planting date, but I think the take home is that these ideally suited or full season hybrids are going to perform a little bit better even in a drought condition overall. Once we get down to the 76 day corn, we really start to lose some bushel yield potential. Hybrid by planting day, let's look back last year. I went over this last year, but I thought I'd review it again. Really last year, we had no difference in planting date at all. I only did 5 hybrids last year, 3 planting dates. Last year, we just ran out of water towards the end of the season. But the 95 and 100 day tended to do the best last year too. You can kind of see that here just quickly. We're getting close to running out of time. And here's the yield by hybrid last year. And the upper 2, 95 and 100 day. Sorry, I don't have this slide arranged the same as I did the others. They performed the best, although the 85 day was statistically the same as the 100 day. So this 85 day hybrid is a very good hybrid. And anyway, moving on, I think we're getting close to time here. In summary, hybrid selection remains important. I'd say for next year, don't plan for a drought. Still pick your good hybrids. Modern hybrids are resilient. I think I try to demonstrate that. Don't give up on them until after they've tasseled, unless there's no rain in the forecast. And really plant full season hybrids if you're trying to maximize yield potential. I think early season hybrids do have a place if you need feed or something like that. But if you're trying to maximize your yield potential, it's best to stick with your full season hybrids. I'd say even up until the end of May. But with that, I'll stop. If there's any questions, I see there's a few things in chat. I'll stop my sharing here. So Shelby can put the QR code up. Let's see what
Right.
chat. Looks like these are all internal chat, so no questions.
And you have a Q&A question now.
Okay, let's see. I got to exit full screen here, I think. Let me try to get to it here.
Can read it to you if you need.
Sure, that'd be quicker.
From Chuck, any thoughts on why there were so many lodged and flat fields of corn in southeast South Dakota this fall? Lower lying fields appeared worse.
Well, the simple answer would be stock cannibalization. I don't know why the lower lying fields would look worse. You know, I saw this in a lot of areas. Basically, when the corn runs, when it's dry and the corn runs out of water, it does everything it can to put all the assets into the ear to make grain, and then the stalk ends up being weak and falls over. I can't explain why that would be more obvious in lower lying areas unless those plants were robust earlier and then somehow ran out of water too and tipped over. I guess without seeing it and taking some measurements, it'd be hard to stereotype or hard to generalize.
If I can just add to that, John, I think this is Sarah Bowder. I think there was just a lot of weather events too, Chuck. Real unfortunate high wind weather events, and I think that affected a lot of fields, especially if we had some conventional stands, things like that.
All right, and while that is up, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. So our second speaker of today is going to be Paul Johnson. Paul is currently the SDSU Extension Weed Program Coordinator. He obtained both his bachelor's and master's in agronomy, as well as a bachelor's in general ag from SDSU. He has been an agronomist at SDSU for 25 plus years, as well as the agronomy center manager for 5. In addition, he's been a farmer for 40 years. In his agronomy work, he's dealt with 16 different crops, but has most experience with corn and soybeans in the Northern Corn Belt. And in his spare time, he enjoys collecting and restoring antique tractors and gas engines. So without further ado, Paul, you can go ahead and start your talk.
Well, I think John introduced things really well. We do a lot of our work between the research farms. He talked mainly about the Volga Research Farm, and we're going to talk about a little bit about that. We also at the Southeast Research Farm and the Northeast Research Farm had very different scenarios throughout this year and made things very interesting. And but first, before we get into talking data, I just want to talk about the upcoming year. And we'll hit a little bit on this at the beginning and a little on the end, but what are your spring plans for 2022 relating to corn? Do you have to worry about carryover concerns from last year? And if you say, nope, I did everything right, are you sure? Because we've seen a lot this year of carryover concerns, and I'm expecting we're going to see more next year, because when we did get the moisture finally this year in a lot of areas where they did, it was late in the season, and so the breakdown of those chemicals wouldn't happen as much as if we would have early season moisture. Do you have a chemical program in place and chemical on hand? In 30 some years, I've never seen a year where we are as likely to have several chemical shortages going into this year. And so anything you can do to make sure you got your program in place and chemical to do it on hand allows you to be sleep a lot better. Don't forget the pre this year. It may be as important as ever with post-emergence chemical shortages. We're going to talk about how one location this past year, the pre's were pretty poor. Again, first time in about 25 years that we have had a year where the pre's didn't work as good. We've been talking about it for about the last 10 and say we're due. And this was the year. However, again, the odds of that are very low. And if we got a good pre-program in place, if there's shortages, we may be able to, in some cases, skip that post-emergence program for a year. And lastly, I think, and this one has hit myself here in the last couple of weeks, seeing as I'm the only one left in weed control at SDSU, do you have a COVID plan? And if workers go down or yourself, do you have a plan to deal with it? Or your supplier loses people and can't provide the services that they want to. We had a little bit of this situation last spring, but I guess yesterday in Brookings County, in a way, we went to levels of COVID higher than we've ever had so far in this pandemic. So I think we need to keep that in place and think about it on how we could handle the situation and not contaminate more people. How much atrazine do you plan to use in 22 and when? I think this is important. We're seeing with our bean program quite a bit more metribuzin used. And if we are running over 1/2 pound of atrazine in our corn, it's likely we're going to have to limit the amount of metribuzin we use, or we're going to see injury being atrazine and metribuzin are in the same chemistry. We can see that problem there. And also the later the atrazine is put on, again, the lesser amount will start affecting carryover. And so some people that are saying, well, I need metribuzin in beans are looking at limiting the atrazine or not using atrazine at all. Will you use a burn down or tillage ahead of planting? One way to save on post-emergence for saving our glyphosate for post-emergence is to maybe use tillage instead of using a burn down ahead of planting. Again, if you're in a no-till system and been going a while, this probably isn't an option, but in other cases it may be an option. And I think this is a year we want to look at all possibilities that we are dealing with. Will you try to delay post-spraying as long as possible? This one I would not be for sure. Late season weeds have very little effect on yield, and also late season weeds do not produce as much viable seed as early season weeds. And so if we delay too long, we're not going to have good weed control, and we're probably not going to have the chemical available to do a second round. And so timeness is normal, and if there's a few weeds left, I guess I wouldn't worry too much about it. Late season weeds have very small effect yield and the seed bank. We already talked about that in the previous one. And so consequently, that is something to keep in mind, that early season weed control is by far the most important. So let's move on to the data now. This is looking at the Northeast Farm, our corn demo. I believe we have about 18 treatments in here. Woolly cupgrass and common lamb's quarter were the two weeds that we mainly had in the demo this year. And the first two columns are for early season ratings, and the last two columns are 2 weeks after our post was applied. So we can see here now with Sure Start atrazine, followed by Resicor and glyphosate post-emergence. The Sure Start atrazine basically had little to no activity because of no moisture to activate these. However, our rescue or our post-emergence treatment come through, and we ended up with over a 200 bushel yield. The Northeast Farm is one that started out real dry. In fact, planting on our standpoint was done deeper than normal to get that seed into moisture to get a good stand. And by the time we got to post-emergence, we were starting to get a few showers to help out So our post-emergence did work good. Here we can see at Acuron and Callisto, again, didn't do it. The Acuron and glyphosate come through, but again, early, just that Acuron low didn't do it. Lumax EZ, same way. The verdict, good as anything, but again, when we're talking below 50%, we just really don't like to see that. Now, Resicor atrazine, same way. We're just going to go down through a few of these. Harness, glyphosate, and atrazine, dual cinnate, dual impact, but you can see, yeah, very good yields. This particular one is interesting. This was a total pre-program, balance and harness. We never got over 60% control, and we were significantly lower in yield, but still 160 bushel. And when we see the check later on, that 50% did make a big difference. Now, here we're starting, we got the EP here. So this was an early post-treatment of Harness Max atrazine glyphosate. Got us initially looked at in the mid-90s. And then by post-emergence time, the woolly cupgrass, we were not getting that all, or we had another flush there. Harness, here we're not early post again. Here we have the Harness XT and the Harness Max, Fearless, and Cadigan with atrazine. Now a couple more early posts again, the Anthem Max and the Pro. But look at how our yields are a little bit poor here. Probably not significant yet, but at the point that we really wonder if even if that pre hadn't worked very good, did it make a difference in those final yields? Here we can see the check, 44 bushels was all we produced, and obviously we didn't have weed control there. LSD, this year our LSDs on a lot of our ground run a little bit harder, higher than normal due to soil variability and causing for yield variations there. And you can see as far as weed control, all of them were around 10% before we could tell a difference. And we also seen it with the weed control this year, more variable because of the moisture. We didn't have the weeds germinating as evenly and equal throughout the plots. So now let's move on to Southeast Farm. Southeast Farm was the exact opposite. We had moisture to start. We got some showers to get things activated, and then it forgot to rain the rest of the season. We look here, basically half the yield what we're seeing at Northeast. Had fairly good. Sure start in atrazine, not real good pre on velvet leaf, but we cleaned it up with our post-emergence. Here to Acuron and Callisto, very good pre-emergence, and cleanup was good at the end, still only in that 100 bushel range. And so consequently, that's going along there. And as we come down through it, here we can see these pre's also showed very good control, but again, the yields right around that 100 bushel rain. And we get down, we can look at some of here's the total pre one. Look at good weed control per out, but it wasn't any better on yield. And the early post also didn't make any difference. And as we come down through here, we can see, again, running around that 100 bushel yield. all the different treatments. There was no big variations among treatments, kind of what we would expect. Here we can see overall our weed pressure wasn't as heavy as Northeast. We had a 60 bushel yield even without any weed control. And we can see here on a rating system, more consistent because weed control was so good, there wasn't a lot of variation within plots, but on yield wise, again, very much difference due to soils conditions. Now, let's go back a couple years, and I'm just going to grab a drink of coffee here to kind of smooth out my voice. We did a study in 2016 across all these locations where we looked at pre alone. And we're just going to take some basic treatments here. These were the top 7 out of the study. I believe we had 14 treatments within. And we can look at the red root pigweed control, common water hemp, common lamb's quarter, velvet leaf, and yellow foxtail. And we can see here, very consistent weed control. Again, no post-emergence on any of these, and looked real good. In fact, we may need to run this study again for a couple of years with some of the new mixtures. And here, Balance Flex, they all look good. Only thing, if I'm going to go through here, Balance Flex is weak on the yellow foxtail. We can also see here with Acuron and Corvus atrazine, we're in the lower 70s on that weed control. So let's keep going on. That was 2016. 2017, the same treatments. The Resicor, Break Free, Acuron, Corvus, and Harness Extra, and Balance Flex. Here now we can see the lamb's quarter ratings were considerably lower. This would have been out of the Northeast farm, fairly heavy lamb's quarter. But when we get down to Acuron Flexi without that atrazine in there is poor. The Corvus atrazine is poor, and the Balance Flex down there. We can also see the same ones on the yellow foxtail are the weaker ones in this. So how did these yield? Okay, PreCorn treatment ratings. Resicor across all 3 locations had the highest yield at 169 bushels. Northeast farm, it was number 1 on weed control. Southeast farm, it was number 5. Volga, it was the number 3. And overall, the weed ratings, it was number 3 as an average. Break Free atrazine, down just 3 bushel on the average across. However, look at the weed control. 2nd Northeast, 3rd Southeast, 1st at Volga, and overall this would have had the best weed ratings across the board. Come down with Acuron the same way. And what is interesting about this is how these sorted out, these top 7. If we look at that, we can really say that we had, I think, around a 10 bushel LSD. So 6 of the top 7, or 5 of the top 7 were in the same yield range. And look at as far as weed control. Again, like I said, there was 14 treatments in the study. The lowest any of them ranked was 8th. So we can see they were fairly consistent across all locations and difference in weather. Now let's compare. In 2017, we also had the pre and post comparisons to look at. we can see here now where we had the Resicor with a post weed control program, and we come down the line. All of these are in, whoops, I got to go backwards here. And we can see the interesting part here is everything is in the 90s except yellow foxtail by the balance flex. And so very good weed control when we did that 2-pass program. And now let's look at the yields. Remember, 169 was the top before with Resicor. We added over 36 bushel, 37 bushel yield there. And now look at the consistency of all these programs. We're all within 10 bushel. And so consequently, we'd basically say these top programs in that period were all the same. So you can say, well, what's the difference? You know, I need to see something to believe it. Well, here's our check at Northeast Farm. You can see this is the check plot right here. You know, the Resicor plot, we can see there's still weeds in there quite a bit, but a lot better than the check. Break-free atrazine and instigate. This weed control was our number one. And so we can see the way that looked. The Acuron Flexi, without the atrazine in that Acuron Flexi, we see the Lamb's Quarter was a lot heavier. The Corvus atrazine, Harness Extra, very good on the grass control here. Few broadleaves coming through, but we can see with the Balance Flex atrazine, we had probably the most weeds in that plot. Now we're going to keep going down the line because these were, even though the post and pre-plots weren't together, they were side by side, and so we're just kind of making a comparison here. We can see the check, maybe not quite as heavy as the pre, but pretty close. But now when we throw that post on the Resicor, or in any case here, we can see how those were cleaned up and on our way to very good yields. So let's get back to our plan for 2022, just to kind of wrap this up here. Use a good pre-program. I just think that's so important this year. For the most part, we're not seeing any shortages predicted in pre-programs. But you know, I would still get mine lined up early because you might have to go to a different pre otherwise. Decide where it is more important to use limited glufosinate or Liberty and glyphosate or Roundup. I think this is really important to consider. I don't think anybody is going to have more than what they had last year. A lot of the dealers are likely to have less of these products than they had last year, and it's likely to be there late. So keep that in mind. How many weeds can you have in corn and not affect yield? Well, this basically comes down to each particular weed, but if we're getting weeds late in corn, so it can canopy and shade those weeds, they're not going to compete well. They're not going to produce a lot of seed. And it really having, you know, 3, 4, 5 weeds per square foot is likely not going to affect that corn yield. Corn can deal with the weed pressure as long as it isn't excessive, better than soybeans can. Look at pre-harvest treatments if needed. Everything says that the shortage should start lightening up in July and later. And so, you know, if we need to do a 2,4-D after brown silk, or if we need to do a Roundup later on to make combining better, we can look at that, and that's something not to have for a planned program, but to realize we do have that as a backup if needed. And I would say start planning early as we get into the season next year. The earlier you can get plans made, the better off you are. And so consequently, be thinking about that. Also with planning early, it's looking at those fields, especially at harvest time, to see what we had for weeds that went to seed, so we can prepare for them for the next year and be in good shape. And with that, here's my contact information. I think we got a couple, 3 minutes left here for questions. And I know, Shelby, if we go over, that's no problem. All of us kind of build that in. And so ask your questions and we will get to them. I think the poll is up there. And
I will throw
I'll give it a few seconds, Shelby, to leave my contact information up, and then I'll put it down so you can put the Q&R code up.
Sounds great.
And there you go.
Thank you.
While Shelby's putting that up, a reminder that if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A.
And then just a reminder why this is up. Tomorrow will be the last day that we'll be covering corn topics. And the program tomorrow will consist of corn, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium recommendation updates, as well as input costs 2022 realigning for success. So we hope to see you there.
I think we got one question here in Q&A, and it's how early is early post? Most weeds, that would be kind of in the 2-leaf stage or as they first start getting going. The thing about it, if we're using our pre there, you know, as we see in South Dakota, we can go through dry spells. The later you put a product on that basically works where it kills the seed as it germinates, the less likely we're going to get the moisture to activate it. And you know, that's been true for years. What are your thoughts on pre and post for a conventional corn program? I guess you know, this year in this chemical shortage, to me, if you can do a tillage operation to head, but it has to be a good tillage operation. And by that, I mean, not like a Selford or something like that. You need something that's going to take those weeds out, so you don't need that burn down post. And I think there's several treatments out there, and we showed a lot of them that can be very good on the pre. So cost to me comes into play there, and working with your local dealer. And I should mention that as we travel around the state this winter, all of this data will be in our data field test data guides, and they're going to be done tomorrow for our first go in Watertown. I know our road show doesn't show up Watertown. David Karkey's worked very hard to get that going up there, and we're expecting a good attendance day tomorrow. So if you're free and in that area, make sure you come over to the Extension Center in Watertown, and it's starting with pancakes right away in the morning and sausage by the radio station. So come and we'll talk about more things than corn tomorrow.
Do you see both questions there, Paul?
Yeah, I think I've got them both covered.
All right. That's it then.